Well, thank you very much. For the next 25 minutes, I'll give you a crash course in attention economics, among other things. See, I'd like to take you back to 2008. In 2008, my son Milton was 8 years old. Now he's almost 20. And at that time, back in 2008, I received a very prestigious research prize of Denmark. It was called the Elite Research Prize. To those of you who are Danish, it was later known as the Penkover Prize, which is sort of fun if you're Danish. If you're not, it doesn't matter. Anyway, at that time, he popped me two questions. That very morning, I was going to receive this prize. He popped me two questions that I have been pondering ever since. And the first one was, I was tying my tie, and he shouts from the bathroom, "Dad, I got to ask you something." It's like, "Go, son, go." And I go, "Pop, what?" Because I've heard down in school that you received this prize, and I'm wondering, what is it that you do? Which in and by itself is a pretty good question. However, of course, the follow-up was even better. The follow-up was, why is it important? And everyone in this room, I could wake at 2 o'clock in the morning and you would say, yeah, I can tell you what I do. The question is, can I also answer the more impertinent question, namely, why it is important? So I'm on that's going to be the basis of this. And for no other reason because you here, I'm just a professor of formal philosophy at the University of Copenhagen. My audience is not that big. Yours is huge, humongous even. And you have a bullhorn to the world probably never seen before in the history of mankind. But my point to be made is this. Look, if you have to answer why it is important, you've got to serve people more than just entertainment. You've got to serve the world. And the reason is, the kind of challenges that the world is facing right now, if you don't all chip in, we're going to have a big problem. We might just go into the coffin, all of us sitting here, but then we're going to leave all the big issues from global challenges to whatnot to the next generation. And if we get to that point, we'll be the first generation in human history that leaves the planet to our children, which is in a worse shape than the ones we received from our parents. And that is not going ahead, that's going backwards and fast. So let me try, from my perspective, to tell you why what it is that you do is important, given the fact that we are going to have to go through something called attention economics. Now, back in 1971, and believe it or not, in 1971 I was 1 year old, Herbert Simon, who received the Nobel Prize in economics in 1978, prophetically said something about an information-rich world. He said, in an information-rich world, you're going to find a scarcity of something else. It will be a scarcity of whatever it is that information consumes. But what information consumes is pretty obvious. It consumes the attention of its recipients. And there you have it. In the information age, it's not microchips or oil. It's not gold, which is a new asset. It's attention as an asset. On par with monetary assets, whether or not those are stock, options, futures, real estate, what have you. But it's a very different sort of asset because it's a lot more elusive than, say, monetary assets. So let's go through it if we could. Look, first of all, as I said, we have never seen so much information in the world ever. 100 million hours of videos is streamed on Facebook every day. There are 200 trillion tweets a year. 400 hours of YouTube video is uploaded every minute. We have never seen so much information. And the entire idea of the information age, writing on the back of the Enlightenment, was that you give people some more information available, and then they could qualify their decisions as to what smartphone to buy next or who to vote for in the next election. And had Kant and Rousseau and the rest of the Enlightenment company been told that if you give people more information, their considerations about Gwyneth Paltrow and Kanye West and Kim Kardashian West is going to rise exponentially. They'd have dreamt themselves back to the dark Middle Ages, which they had actually set out to free themselves from given information. That's the reason why Joey Novick, who's an American comedian, said that the information in the world doubles every day. But what they don't tell us is that our wisdom is cut in half at the same time. And that's some price to pay for more information, is that more information doesn't in it by itself lend to better and more qualified decisions for anybody, citizens, children, whoever. Now, when we think of it from that perspective, let's see what really trends. Here are some of the stories that really trended in Denmark and that really got a lot of attention, captured a lot of attention. There was the Marius incident about a giraffe getting slaughtered. There was the Vote Man video about recruiting people to vote. Denmark wanted to seize jewelry and cash from refugees. That's definitely true as a law, but it's only been invoked maybe 4 times, and they confiscated about 75,000 crowns worth of goods. So it wasn't a big deal in terms of real clear politics. But in terms of attention economics, it certainly was. And here's yet another one about the hashtag Pizzagate, about the apparent prostitution ring in the basement of a pizza parlor in Washington. Total conspiracy theory, run all over the place, and is still in vogue, it's still running. So these kind of stories tend to get a lot of traction, and why? Well, look, they all follow the same sort of trajectory, a trajectory that is known to you, if anybody in the business. It always starts out by somebody having seen or heard something online, and people go, oh my God, have you heard about this? And then somebody goes, I'm outraged. And then everyone is outraged. And now I'm more outraged than anyone. Oh my God, someone just tweeted a joke about it. It's that offensive and I'm outraged. And I'm not more outraged about the joke than what I was really outraged about, and it has nothing to do with the case in hand. Somebody should resign, I'm not sure who. Now I'm arguing with somebody I don't know. And then in the backdraft of this attention curve, you get, it transpires that this story is much more complex than first meets the eye. And then eventually, I have no more time for this. Dancing with the Stars on, I gotta get on. But that will tell you something about the elusiveness of our attention. It's getting directed every 3 ways, every time. And that also means something here. It means that the asset to capture is attention. Why do you think there's push messages on your cell phones? Why do you think you get updates all the time? It's about capturing the attention, because the business model is simple. Allocate people's attention by using information, then take that information, the attention, and sell it to the ones who are really paying for it, the advertisers. But we have this idea that there's a free lunch going on online because we don't pay for our you, me, or so me profiles. Wrong. We just pay in a different currency. We pay with our attention and we pay with our data. And that is basically the business model of the social media. It's the business model of many online streaming services and so forth. It's like attention allocation par excellence. Now, where do we go with all of this? Well, look, here is the top 10 followers have followers on social media in this world. Cristiano Ronaldo, 321 million followers. He's by far the biggest hit. Followed by Justin Bieber, Taylor Swift, Selena Gomez, Katy Perry, Rihanna, Ariana Grande, Shakira, Kim Kardashian West, and Beyonce. We go from 321 million followers to 193 million followers. So we have one football player, 8 singers, and a reality star. No Barack Obama, no Dalai Lama, no Trump. As a matter of fact, even if you look at placeholder number 1 and placeholder number 10, we lose 130 million followers. That's more than what Donald Trump even has. And below Beyonce, losing followers is really something that happens very quickly. But it goes to show one thing, namely, in terms of attention allocation, it's very uneven. Some people have a lot more attention than others. Big nodes in the network, influencers, if you wish, they have a lot more attention than the bulk of the rest of us. So they're the few ones on top and the rest of us on bottom. That goes if you just look at the number of followers, because there's sort of this idea that ever since we got the social media, ever since we also have a voice, well, that entails that there is sort of a democratic feature about the web, which is at best BS. Now that would be true if attention allocation followed a normal distribution. So here are the ones with a lot of followers, not too many of those. Here are the ones with very few followers, not too many of those. And then there's all the rest in the middle. Wrong. Attention allocation online does not follow a normal distribution. Attention follows what's called a power law distribution. That means that a few big nodes have most of the traction and attention online, and then there's the rest of us. That was true when we look at the number, microscopically at the number of followers, but it's even more true when we look at who has the traffic. A few big actors, like depending on how you count the conglomerates, they have about 90% of the traffic online. You know who they are: Facebook, YouTube, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon. They have about 90% of all the traffic. And there's a power law distribution, which means the ones who have a lot always get bigger. So Facebook, when they were fell threatened, they bought Instagram, they bought WhatsApp. Google bought YouTube, and Amazon, Jeff Bezos, as you know, he's mostly known for selling spare parts on Amazon.com. But 3 years ago, he acquired himself a new product in the portfolio. It was pretty unusual for the kind of stuff he's usually doing. What did he buy? He bought the Washington Post. Everything. That meant telesays, journalists, the lot. But then it also goes to show that this information ecosystem in which we are now living, it's extremely complicated because there's a lot of services that you can by now sort of incorporate into your attention allocation scheme, from streaming videos and producing movies to series, which all of you know. But it's all about the fact that a certain few actors get the bulk of attention and then they're all the rest. So it makes it very uneven. And if you think there's anything democratic about it, think again. It has nothing to do with democracy. It has everything to do with capitalism on steroids. Now, I don't mind. You should just know, because it makes for very uneven competition, unless, of course, you're one of the really big players. Where does that take us? Well, let's see what works. Now, it turns out that if you have to capture people's attention, you have to actually feed in to what's called their activity mobilizing sentiments. So if you write out on your profile on social media, "I'm so happy today," nobody's going to share that. Nobody cares. I mean, people would say, "Good for you." Because happiness is a state I'm in. It does not animate anybody else to do anything. But if you say, "Look, I'm really angry with all those foreigners that are coming across the border and eating our snack bars," people will react on that. And that's because anger is what's called an activity mobilizing sentiment. It animates us to do something. And if you look at our emotion, it turns out that we have a lot of negative activity mobilizing sentiments. And if you ask evolutionary biologists as to why, the answer is obvious. It's good for survival. Of course, we also have positive activity mobilizing sentiments like fascination and awe, sympathy, hope. You think it's for fun that Barack Obama calls his campaign hope? Hope is an activity mobilizing sentiment, that's why. If he had called it happiness, he wouldn't have won. That was a joke. It wasn't very good, but it was there, as a matter of fact. Okay, so let's look into let's take a look at this if we could. This is one of the most retweeted tweets ever. 4 more years. That's Barack Obama when he wins the second term. It's a good story, right? It's a story about, love being intact on the peak of power. People like to share that. It's a sympathy, fascination story. This is also very shared, not for the positive. I don't know if you know this story. It's Justin Seiko, who's working at a communications bureau in New York. Well, I'd say she used to, because she doesn't anymore. She was going to Africa over Christmas holidays in 2013, so she was flying out of JFK, going to Heathrow, waiting 2 hours in Heathrow before she flew 11 hours along the axis from Heathrow to Göteborg. And while she was sitting there in Heathrow getting bored, she wrote out to her Twitter network, "I'm going to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS, just kidding, I'm white." Folds the phone up and flies 11 hours along the axis. Now, by the time she hit South Africa, people had taken notice of the tweet here. So she had lost her job. The one she was going to visit did not want her to come. The boyfriend had left her. And also, while she was flying, somebody figured out where she was going. So by the time she hit Joburg, people actually live streamed her opening her phone, seeing the world falling apart. Just to say and show that anger really works. Now, if you're in the business of allocating attention, somebody might think about this. Anger, fear, indignation, it works really well. They're contagious like hell online. But positive messages can be too. But if it's just a matter of mobilizing and maximizing your profits, tell sad stories that make people either scared or angry. That'll work. But if you do that, then you're going to lose out on something else. And I'll tell you what that will be. Now, of course, it doesn't always have to be such. Let me just get this back a minute. It doesn't really have to be such that it has to be negative. You can also seduce people on positive or fascinating stories. So here's one. Take 2 things that might seem very boring. Water slides on one hand, and the ballistic trajectory of bullets. That sounds pretty boring, but you could put it together, of course, it looks pretty interesting. And here is a viral video online. I don't know if you know this. Now, I don't know what you think. I think that's pretty funny, honestly. I hadn't seen that one coming. Look, would you share that? And most of you would say, "No, I could never share that." Okay, good for you. But about 10 and 15 million people have shared it. The only thing is that both Nature and the Danish Engineering Company show this is a fake news story. This is not even possible. But you might share it all the same. Now, there is a point to this, namely, whatever is viral is not necessarily true, and whatever is true is not necessarily viral. Now, if you're an Enlightenment person and sort of like information and think that's important to humanity, this is a disconcerting fact, you know? And so basically just to say that if you can tap into these emotions, you got yourself a really good gameplay, independently of whether or not the truth can follow. And that doesn't only get when we're talking about water slides and whatnot, it's also a matter of what goes on in, say, politics, for instance. And it's not for fun that World Economic Forum since 2013 have rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed again, along with the UN and the OECD, that misinformation on the web is now to be considered a global challenge on par with climate change, migration, etc. And why? Basically because it undermines a way of thinking, a way of government that we really like. It's called democracy. Now, look, I love this picture about politics, right? Nobody gives a rat's ass about the candidate, but everybody cares about their selfies. Now, once the truth is a loser, then you can get people to believe the unbelievable, the unimaginable. Because when the facts lose, then it's more important for you to be on a certain team than whatever the facts can follow. So here is a little speculation of a conspiracy theory pertaining to Hillary Clinton's health during the 2016 election.
This past summer...
Okay. Slightly disconcerting, don't you think? Now, why and what kind of agendas could you feed into being in the business you're in? Well, it's not like the world is short of global challenges. Here, World Economic Forum had their annual meeting last year. Every year, Davos does the same thing. They list 10 global challenges to the world, which are congruent what you find in the UN and the OECD and other giant NGOs. Now, if you want to feed into an agenda that is bigger than just entertainment, maybe here's a little inspiration for you. Right? So look at these things. We got food security, inclusive growth, employment, climate change, global finance, the internet, gender equality, global trade, long-term investment, and healthcare. Those are the 10 challenges presented every year to the world, and if we don't get together and solve them together, we're going to be fucked with a dick big enough for an elephant for the rest of this planet's lifetime. I guarantee it. Because these are running in parallel. They're not running one at a time. It's all happening at once. And with the kind of bullhorn that you have, and if you want to give a reasonable answer to what it is that you do and why it is important mostly, then at least here's some inspiration as to where and how to get going. I'm not saying that you're not doing it already. There are good examples. The Hunt is a great example of social psychology gone bad. Black Mirror is a good example of surveillance capitalism on steroids. So you're doing it, but you're going to have to do more of it. Because if anybody will listen, there's a reason why you are in a business which is booming like nothing ever have seen before. But if you don't feed into an agenda that's bigger than just making a buck and entertaining people, then we are going to be off a lot worse in the years to come. And you don't want to be part of that because really, we have a concept called corporate social responsibility. And for this particular occasion, I figured out a word for you. It's called cultural societal responsibility. Now do me a favor, take it. Thank you.